right now, let's cross over for that Heifer International Ghana presentation, that breakfast meeting and launch of the Youth Smallholder Farmers in Agri-Tech Africa report.
Of youth and technology in Ghana. Now, this is so critical, and we woke up this morning to news on the front page of the Daily Graphic, which had the following headline. It says, Agri Ministry alert, prolonged drought worrying, low food production in 4 regions. And it makes for some very interesting reading, the statistics that the Agri Ministry has put forward to alert farmers about what is to come. It shows that out of the total maize farmland of 246,000 plus hectares, 79,000 hectares could not be cultivated. Why? Because of prolonged drought. But I found the reason for the drought also pretty interesting. The Agri Ministry explains, according to Graphic, that the main rainy season, which is normally from March to July every year, has moved to August. And they say that in turn has shifted the minor season further backwards. And this has led to some prolonged period of drought, which is very interesting. And in this conversation, we will talk, I'm pretty sure, about climate change. But with this problem comes talk about possible solutions. And I'm thinking irrigation is definitely a perfect way to deal with this problem, which some say is definitely a technological factor. And so we are here today, thanks to Heifer International, to consider, for example, in the midst of the alert that the Agri Ministry has just put out, which is on the front page, what technological innovations can we consider, for example, in fixing a problem such as this? This reason has, of course, inspired the study that Heifer has done, and particularly assessment of the role of the youth and technology in Ghana, and we want to get them involved in the solutions as well. And so a perfect occasion to consider our options, and I'm delighted that you are joining us this morning to do just that at a time of great need for such interventions. And so welcome all of you. We are live this morning on the JoyNews channel on Multi-TV. We are also live on Facebook, again, streaming live via JoyNews. We are live on YouTube, so simply go onto the YouTube link of JoyNews and you can watch this live. Remember to engage with us. Our hashtag this morning is hashtag Youth in Agri-Tech. And keep your questions coming. Apart from our physical audience here in the auditorium, we have many of you also joining us via Zoom and other networks, and we'll put them up on a screen shortly, who are joining us wherever they are in the world via the links that we have shared. We look forward to a lot, including the presentation of the study and the findings, which I'm pretty sure will fascinate you. Before we go further, though, I want to introduce all of you for a proper welcome to the Heifer Africa Senior Vice President for Africa, Adesua Ifedi. Ladies and gentlemen, she sent in her welcome address via video. And Adeswa is in Nigeria and will join us pretty shortly. In the time of COVID, obviously, with travel restrictions, etc., we've relied so heavily on technology. But technology, as we know, sometimes can prove a bit challenging. We'll get Adeswa to join us with her welcome address very shortly, representing Heifer International, which, of course, has put in a lot to bring this study to us. We have a lot of dignitaries also joining us today who have managed to help us make this occasion work, and we are grateful to have with us many of the directors from the Agri Ministry joining us. We have representatives also from groups from across the field when it comes to this particular sector that I want to acknowledge as well, their input and support to make this work. We have reps from academia who are joining us today from the University of Ghana. We also have reps from the Ministry for Trade and Industry joining us today, Stella Kosia and Sam, who is representing the Deputy Minister. We also have, obviously, Ministry for Food and Agriculture joining us today. We have Mr. Richard Chumesi Ankra, who I've met recently in WA on a similar mission with the GIZ. We are grateful that you could join us, sir. Also joining us from the ministry is Paul Siama. Also from the Trade and Industry Ministry is Anthony Nyame Befi. We also have from the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Patrick Abeka, who's Darlington Owusu. We are grateful that you could join us also, both of you. And we have many of the farmers themselves also joining us. International partners, we have Denida, Linda Akofui Abafoli. Thank you very much for gracing this occasion. We have the Share Network Ghana, and remember that they are the actual practitioners on the field every day, helping us make sure that we put food on our table. And so we're grateful, Edie Zakaria, also who have made it possible for this to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite Richard Chumesi Ankra, who is the Director, Policy Planning and Monitoring, and also Evaluation Directorate of the Ministry for Food and Agriculture, to give us some brief opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Richard Chumesi Ankra, Director, Policy Planning and Monitoring of the Evaluation Directorate of the Agri Ministry. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Mr. Moderator, thank you for the opportunity. I'm standing in on behalf of the Honorable Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture to make these brief remarks. He sends his apologies for not being able to be at this meeting. He's currently attending to some other equally important assignments. So I stand in for him to read this brief keynote. I think the theme for this meeting is how we are going to engage the youth in agriculture, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for time immemorial have become aware of the youth having kind of this interest in agriculture and trying to put up policies and strategies to engage them, to attract them into the agricultural sector. For time immemorial, I think in the country, people have negative perceptions about agriculture, and they think that is for those who are not educated, unskilled physical laborers are required, low returns, economic returns, and now the major term is agriculture is very risky. So the ministry for a long time have initiated the Youth in Agriculture program, which has had different forms, because as we get along, we try to modify the strategy to make sure that we still get the interest of the youth. Under the Youth in Agriculture program, it provides productive alternatives for the engagement of the youth in agriculture. And then we diversify various commodities to just also get them to get interest in them. We try to have new varieties, which are short duration and have other attractive interventions, and the animal breeds that are also very productive to make sure that within a very short time, the youth will have interest in them. The main objective of the program was making the youth accept farming as a commercial business venture and appreciably increasing farm incomes. That's the reason why we are coming up with these new varieties to ensure that the productivity of the various commodities are increased. And then also to motivate them to stay in the rural areas by ensuring inputs to reach the farming communities. All these are evolving mechanisms that we have put in place to attract the youth. Because if you find it difficult to get the inputs that will enable you to produce, the tendency is that you try to move to the cities where you think that things are quite easy. The Youth in Agriculture program initially was in the form of a block farming, where large area is prepared, plowed, and then shared it among the youth, and they are given the necessary input to crop. And when they harvest, they pay back what has been given to them. That was not too attractive to them to start with, so that didn't work that much. Then we also provide livestock and improved breeds, which some of them also could not accept. And then we try to find other models of agri-businesses to incubate them, and that's what has been the trend. Then when this current government came, we tried to modify it a little bit and formulated the program currently called Planting for Food and Jobs. This program has 5 modules, and they have different dimensions of incentives to make sure that if the youth will take interest. So the first module, the food cost module, the incentive there is subsidies for fertilizers and seeds. To start with, there were subsidies of about 50% of the cost. And then the seed too, there was 50% cost borne by the government to enable the youth cultivate the various commodities, which were basically the cereals, maize, rice, sorghum, soybean, and others. We have also added the vegetables as part of the selected commodities. So that one is working a little bit. We're getting a little bit of them coming up to take up agriculture as a venture, as a business. Then we have the PED, which also tries to diversify our primary income from the 3 crops, which has always been the cocoa. But under this program, government is looking at other commodities, which is trying to bring it up to the level of cocoa. We have coffee, rubber, coconut, mango, shea, and cashew. And over here, the incentive here is that the district assemblies are resourced to raise seedlings of these commodities depending on the agroecological zones that they find themselves. And the seedlings are given free of charge to those that are interested to plant them on their fields. And those 21, they are matured to be exported to generate foreign exchange for the country. Then we also have the rearing for food and jobs, which is the livestock component of the planting for food and jobs, where we improve, we supply new breeds and subsidize them. We give you cockerels to add to the local ones that you have, and then when they meet, then you have the offspring which are very much improved, and you can put it on the market for increased income. Under the cockerel program, the poultry program, the vaccines for treatment of diseases and the feed are also subsidized. Even the day-old chicks are also subsidized by government. So that these are all to reduce the cost of production, then to make sure that you are able to make, the youth are able to make profit and to stay in and see it as business. Apart from the poultry part, we also have the ruminants, such as sheep and goats, which are also given to the individual farmers to prop up their own stocks. And then there's also a program under piggery. In all cases, the treatment of any diseases that break up is also going to be free. Then the next model that attracts the youth more is the greenhouse vegetable production. We know previously we used to have bans on vegetables and fruits that have to export to European market because of residues of chemicals and things like that. So here, to attract the youth, the government has turned to greenhouse production of vegetables. And to forward that up, 3 training schools have been set up in the country, one in Dawenya, one in Akumadan, and the other one in Bojasi. These have been set up at the places where there are water from irrigation facilities, and the training is residential. If you're interested, you have been advertising in the papers. If you're interested, you apply and you go for about 6 months training. And over there, we have commercial area of land, which is also accessible to those who have been trained to also produce vegetables and export and sell some on the local market. Under this program, about 186 graduates have been trained. In fact, some of them go to Israel for another 11 months of ground training. But for COVID, which broke up in 2020, we have not been able to continue, but at least about 110 of them have been to Israel and back. The equipments are also there, and government is subsidizing them. You buy it at a reduced cost to be able to set up, except that you have to set up a place where there's water to enable you to produce. And then the next model is mechanization. Because everybody thinks agriculture is fiscal, you have to spend a lot of energy to be able to listen, but you have to operationalize, you have to make that the operations on the farms are more efficient. So government has, since 2017, attracted a number of loan facilities to supply mechanization equipment, such as tractor, harvesters, seeders, planters, boom sprayers, threshers, and things like that. And recently, even small handheld harvesters for rice, just to make the work on the farm a little bit relaxed. Previously, we were talking about the hoes and the cutlasses, so we're moving from there. So I think you're also looking at technology, agri-tech in improving, attracting the youth. I think that's one of the areas the government has looked at. Then marketing also becomes a problem. People that we have produced, you are not getting market. And there are some institutions that have been put in place to also assist in the marketing of surpluses of commodities that are produced in the country. We have the NAFCO, who buys surpluses, and then the Ghana Commodity Exchange, which also have the surpluses. And then before 2017, there were about 34,000 metric tons of storage capacity for grains in country, grains and legumes in country. And the government to date has been able to build 18 new warehouses, each 1,000 metric ton capacity, to enable us to store grains as one of the mechanisms for regulating prices of these commodities. The next thing that comes up is rice storage, which must be stored in a more regulated environment, silos, and then this one, we are yet to have a pilot, with a PPP arrangement, public-private partnership arrangement, to see how that one all works. So these are all areas that the youth are being, your attentions are being drawn to look at to. And then when I read the summary of your report, there was also issues about financial support. I also want to indicate that we have the OVCF, Global Value Chain Fund within the ministry. It's a German government support, where you give loans to those who want to go into agriculture. And then for 2019-2020, government also put in place a stimulus package for rice millers, because rice producers were saying that they were unable to get market for their paddy. So this stimulus enabled about 15 large-scale commercial millers to buy rice off the hand of the farmers. And that was another incentive which the youth can also look at. There's also a GASOL, it's another financing model that's trying to mitigate risk in receiving funds, credit for agricultural purposes. And then the one that has emerged immediately recently is the CARES, COVID-19 Alleviation and Revitalization of Enterprises Support Program. Over there, the subsidy is on the capital. So we have what we call the interest subsidy, where you do your proposal, you go to a bank for a loan, and instead of you saying that the cost of capital is high, government is going to take part of the interest that you pay on the capital, the money that you take as a loan. And I think there's also an issue that was related to land. That's one of the things that's not attracting the youth to the sector. But I want to say that land for agriculture in Ghana is not scarce. For land that's potentially suitable for agriculture, it's only about 40% that's under cultivation now. So for us in the policy sector, I think what you have to look at is how to make sure that the land tenure system and the security of acquiring land is very attractive to the youth. Yeah, so we are happy to be here. We are here, almost some of our directors are here. That we recently went out with the Honorable Minister, and one chief advised that we cannot evaluate ourselves as a ministry. Rather, somebody should evaluate and tell us. So we are happy to be here to listen to the report that you have developed, and we're going to take the recommendations that come out very seriously and consider that in our policy formulation and planning processes. For that, we commend the many CSOs whose interest in the agriculture sector allows them for the advocacy role they play in directing the strategies of the ministry. We are happy to be here, and we want to listen to you and make our necessary input to today's discussions. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for him is Richard Chumesi Ankra, Director, Policy Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation Directorate of the Ministry of Agriculture. And as he said there, the ministry is ready to listen to the details of the study done by Heifer International, and they're ready to take on the recommendations as we will hear shortly. Before I even go further, I must acknowledge that as Mr. Chumesi Ankra himself noted, there are so many other partners and international donor community members and other INGOs represented here. I just quickly want to acknowledge the presence of Oxfam International. I want to acknowledge also the presence and solidarity with today's event of AFAD. We also have Action Aid represented. We are grateful for your presence. We have the Hunger Project also represented here today. We have the Embassy of Switzerland represented here, and GIZ, of course, are also represented. We are grateful that you make time to join us here today for this event. Before we get into the details of the research, however, as Chumesi Ankra has indicated, I have someone who can summarize for you and give you a proper path towards the details that we'll hear shortly. She is a Senior Vice President Africa for Heifer Africa, and she is in the person of Adesua Ifedi, who, as I indicated earlier, I sent in her message via video.
Hello, everybody. It's exciting to be able to welcome you to this event where we are launching the report that we just concluded on youth, technology, and agriculture in Africa. Heifer International has worked in Africa for over 45 years. We've been invested in working at the bottom of the pyramid with smallholder farmers. We're passionate about ending hunger and poverty in Africa, and it's that passion that has brought us on this journey to work with youth, technology, and innovation. We believe that the future of Africa's agriculture rests on the shoulders of our young people. We see them as an asset to the continent, not a liability. And we believe that their passion and their zeal to transform and to embrace technology and innovation is key to Africa's liberation, to Africa's food self-sufficiency, and to the transformation of our continent. So we welcome you to this day and this event. We have taken time to find out what are the challenges that youths are facing in Africa. How can they have more access to finance? How do we create an enabling environment for them to thrive and for them to transform Africa's agriculture through technology? And this report is very revealing on what we have found out, and we welcome all of you in the community of agriculture to come on this journey with us. We believe that 2030 will be exciting as long as we invest in our young people, we invest in technology, and we invest in agriculture for Africa. So I welcome you once again to this event, and we look forward to partnering with every one of you as we start this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a brief round of applause for her. That's the Senior Vice President, Africa, Adesua Ifedi, who sent her that was done by Heifer International, and get to appreciate the fascinating findings that they made. Help me please welcome to do that with a round of applause. Presenting this is the Interim Country Director for Heifer International, Madame Irabuna Yanyi Akofo. A big round of applause for her.
Thank you. Good morning to you all once again. Good morning to you all once again, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I also want to say thank you to all our colleagues, partners who have joined us live on Zoom, and also those watching us live on the social media platforms and JoyNews channel. So this morning, my presentation is going to be about what the youth are saying about the role they can play in transforming agriculture in Africa and Ghana. Sorry. Okay, I want to quickly. All right, okay. All right. I'm going to begin my presentation with a story. I don't know how many of us have had the opportunity to watch this movie, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. It's a very important and interesting story, a true life story that happened in a remote village called Wimbe in Malawi. This happened in 2001, 2002, thereabout. And this story is about a young 13-year-old boy called William who lived with his parents and siblings in this remote village. They had no electricity, and everybody in the community depended on agriculture for their livelihood. The story is set during a period where the communities were faced with severe famine. So the beginning of the farming season started with heavy rainfall, which affected their ability to sow or to plant. And unfortunately, there was a lot of soil erosion because of the heavy downpour, and as a result, most of the seeds did not stay in the soil. They were eroded away. The heavy downpour was also followed with severe hot and dry season. And so even for the plants that survived the heavy rainfall, could not survive during the dry season. And all the families had very low yield. In fact, no family had more than a month, no family had enough harvest to sustain them for more than a month. So they had to rely on government rationing, and unfortunately, in some cases, families even had to steal from others in order to make their families survive. One of the saddest moments in the story, or when you're watching the movie, is when the senior sister of William left the house or ran away from the house with her boyfriend. And in the letter that she left for her parents, she wrote in, "One less mouth to feed." One less mouth to feed, because the situation was very dire. People were dying because of hunger. During this same time, William also dropped out of school, but William had a self-taught love for science. And that passion led him to uncover how to use energy, how to create the uses of energy and how to develop a windmill. He and his friends came together and they were able to develop a small prototype, which was successful. So he went to his father to say that this has been successful and he would like to do a big one, which can be used to move water from the village well to the farm fields. Of course, his father thought this was impossible because he's never seen it before. And then also, William was able to gather all his, all the tools or the materials he needed to create a big windmill. But the only thing that he needed was a part from his father's bicycle. This bicycle was the only bicycle in the village, in the whole village. And that was the family's only major asset. So his father said, no, it's not possible. But then through his mother, he was able to convince his father, and they were able to come together. The people that were left in the village, the little people that were left, because most people had run away or they had left or had died. So the few people that were left in the village with his family, they came together, and then they built this windmill. And yes, it was able to supply water to their farms. So whilst the rest of Malawi were suffering and struggling with drought, this little boy with his family and his self-taught love for science and passion was able to work with his family to develop or to build a windmill that was able to supply water to their farmlands from their village well. And because of that, they were able to harvest, they were able to grow, and they were able to feed themselves. The story was a national sensation, and it also attracted international attention. And the good news about it is that William had the opportunity. This is William. He got scholarship, and he was able to continue his education, and he's been able to build more windmills in his community, and as a result, they have access to electricity now, and this community is able to farm all year round. This is what we are talking about. This is exactly the same thing that we are talking about and the reason why we are gathered here today. Many of us here have had similar experiences, have listened to the story of farmers. We have worked side by side with farmers for decades, and the issue of the rains didn't come early. The rains were not enough, or they came late and they were heavy, and so we lost everything. Our yields were poor. The effect of it, of young people moving away from the villages to the cities for greener pastures, and sometimes even outside the country for greener pastures, is real. It is happening, and just like the headline said today in the newspaper, there are challenges, and it is only through technology that we can transform and unlock the potential of agriculture in the continent and in the country. And it is the reason why we came together It is the reason why we came together to do this research, to figure out and understand what is the youth already doing in agri-tech in the country and in Africa as a whole, and what are the challenges they are facing and what we can do to support them to do better. According to the World Bank, by 2030, there'll be 350 million unemployed youth in Africa. Where is the job going to come from? If agriculture is the largest employer in the continent and in Ghana, then there's no elsewhere to look. to drive opportunities in the food value chain, to create jobs for the youth, and to make sure we transform agriculture, unlock the potential then, and transform our economies, right? So the report looks at 5 key objectives. The first thing we wanted to do was to understand the challenges that have led to the decreasing farm productivity and dwindling incomes of farmers, right? Also to look at the challenges of technology adoption by smallholder farmers in Africa. To understand the participation of youth in agriculture, their fears, and the impact of those fears and those challenges on the future of food. Also to look at the technological innovation in agriculture, its adoption rate, the barriers to entry, and the scalability, the challenges that prevent youth from scaling up, and the potential of its impact. And finally, also to add value to the ongoing work. So much work is currently ongoing, and Richard narrated them while he was here, to add value to what is going on, and also to inform our strategy for 2030 as an organization. The report was done in 3 sub-regions in the continent. So we have West Africa, East Africa, and South Africa, Ghana being one of the countries for West Africa. So altogether, we had 11 countries. Nearly 30,000 farmers were surveyed. 30,000 youth were surveyed or spoken to. And we had 299 smallholder farmers who were engaged in focus group discussions across the 11 countries. And 110 agri-tech focused organizations, some of them are sitting here, who were also interviewed for this survey. So I'll go through the general findings first, and then come to the findings that came out from Ghana. So the first thing that we learned is that there is a low agricultural tech adoption across all the countries, with 23% of the youth engaged in agriculture or using any form of agriculture at the moment. Access to land ownership was a major, major barrier across all the countries that we surveyed for youth. Access and ownership was a huge barrier. Funding, training, and access to agricultural technology are the 3 key things that the youth said that they needed support in order for them to thrive in this sector or to engage in the sector. And then also, the agri-focused organizations that we spoke to, or the agri-tech businesses, youth-led agri-tech businesses that we spoke to, spoke about the need for technological innovation, government support for young farmers, and also inclusion in agri-policy. No one should be left behind, right? And also, we know that we know from the youth that access to finance, access to land, access to training were the huge things. One of the things that I found interesting that was low was access to markets. A lot of time we think that access to markets is a problem, but this is totally different. Where they are talking about the land, training, and finance are the key barriers that need to be looked at. Smallholder farmers also talked about illiteracy, socioeconomic status, and also inadequate extension as the barriers that has prevented them from engaging or adopting technology. We also talked about enlightenment, information, and affordability to encourage them to embrace technology. There have been so many social entrepreneurs in the country that have innovated and done so many interesting work to support agri-tech. But a lot of the time, these innovations are attached to projects, and we see that at the end of the project, we don't see these innovations scaling up. Adverse weather conditions, insect pest diseases, technology barriers have all negatively affected farmers' productivity, and they agree to it in the conversations that we had with them. Now, the critical success factors that came out from the survey was that there's a need for us to look at the ease of use of technology, the range of information that technology is offering, and the affordability, right? I have seen a lot of technology that when I look at, I say, oh, this is easy and simple. But a lot of time, what we consider to be easy and simple is not easy and simple to the farmer. And also, we looked at the impact of coronavirus on agri-tech business, youth-led agri-tech business, and realized that 40% of them were affected, and they temporarily had to, 40% of them were affected, and they temporarily had to close their businesses. 38% experienced some reduction in the demand for their services or goods, and we also have 36% that said they do not have the financial capital to grow back their businesses. So that is unemployment being worsened, right? So for Ghana, we had a total of 2,678 youth that were interviewed from all across the country, from Greater Accra to the Middle Belt to the Northern region that were interviewed. And 36% of these youth are currently engaged in some form of agriculture. What they consider to be the most important support that is needed to increase youth engagement was funding, training, and mentoring, with 35% agreeing that funding is the main barrier and 31% also saying that training are the main supports that are needed. In their engagement in agriculture, we realized that 42% of those that we surveyed were already doing something in crop farming, 21% in livestock, 5% in agri-processing, and also 38% already engaged or doing something around agricultural technology. Right? The best ways they thought that the youth could be engaged in agriculture, it doesn't have to be farming alone, right? But they thought that they could be engaged in technological innovation, right? Government support for young farmers, and also inclusion and adoption of youth in agricultural policy formation. And we had 39% actually saying that technological innovation is the key thing that is needed, or is the best way for you to be engaged. When we look at unemployment, so looking at all these statistics, and when you look at, unemployment, overall, the nearly 30,000 people that we surveyed, 66% of them were currently unemployed. And Ghana had 38% of youth currently unemployed among those that we surveyed. I think that it was the third country to have the least unemployed youth among the surveyed participants, with Malawi having 8%. Number of youth with access to land. In fact, among all the countries, Ghana had the majority or most of their youth with poor access to land, with Malawi having the best, which was 11% of their youth said they didn't. 75% is very huge. Our educational system is not making it easy for you to engage in agriculture. Youth in agriculture using any form of technology. It was interesting to note that I think Ghana was the third or second least country with the least people using technology was the least with the least percentage of youth using technology, 12%. Right? It's interesting to know only few of us, or only few of the youth, are currently using technology in any way in agriculture. So what were some of the recommendations that came from the youth, the agri-tech businesses, the farmers that we spoke to? They spoke about market linkages, right? Providing linkages to local and regional markets for farmers. Also digital literacy, that smallholder farmers will have access to smartphones or internet. Smallholder farmers in rural areas do not have access to smartphones or internet. But however, a basic phone is a good starting point in introducing technology through SMS for the youth. And I know that there are many examples in the country of these type of innovations going on. The need for you to engage in smallholder farming. The truth is that youth are not interested in farming, right? And we know that even their parents themselves are not interested in them being in farming. So there is a huge challenge we face when we talk about the future of food. Since we have an aging farming population and we want the youth to take up that they are the face of farming tomorrow, they are the face of food. So the interest of youth is to see how agri-tech can be able to, how we can leverage agri-tech to be able to do farming better in a more innovative way, in a more sustainable way, and create affordable solutions for everybody. Also mentoring and training. I know that there are a lot of mentoring and training programs in the country, but that needs to be strengthened and continued. Also partnership with government, looking at how government can support these agri-tech businesses with access to land tax waivers, fiscal policies that deliberately support the youth, and also rewarding innovation, access to opportunities that drive innovation in everything that we do when it comes to agribusiness, and also aligning technology in program design. Because a review of existing programs that were targeted at smallholder farmers and youth must be conducted if the current strategies support the African farmers with the use of technology. So in a nutshell, we know that we cannot transform or change agriculture if we continue to doing things the rudimentary way that we've been doing. There is the need for us to think differently, look at ground-up approaches that are able to solve the challenges that we face. The example of William, we saw how the village came together. William thought of the solution. It was ground-out approach. It was not something that was brought somewhere, but then it took everybody in the community. They thought about what they have, the resources they have, and what they can use those resources that is immediately available to them to create the solutions. Thank you very much.
So that, again, was the interim country director for Heifer International, Irabana Yanyako, for fascinating insights into what they had found in that study. Indeed, we are going to dissect what we've heard. Very interesting findings. I find some of the comparisons with the other African countries interesting, that only 12% of the youth they spoke to say they're using technology in agriculture. When it comes to Ghana, if you compare to Kenya, for example, is as much as 39%. And so we're lagging behind. We're going to be dissecting, hearing from personal experiences now. And I want you all to join in that conversation. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite my panel members who will join us for a brief discussion. But most importantly, we have a lot of our, representatives from the Agri Ministry who also, help us talk through some of the findings, see how those findings we've heard agree or diverge. Work on the field, so we'll try and see the balance we've heard and what the ministry have done, but most importantly, your own personal experiences. From what what the challenges are. And so I want to hear from challenges we know. So I want to hear, why has it been present of us in this panel conversation? I want to invite Adedolapo Alabi, who is an agriculturalist by training, a proud farmer and officer at the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. A round of applause for her, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm delighted to have a woman joining us for this panel discussions because they bring a very interesting, refreshing perspective to these conversations. Castro Enchidanso is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Piki Farms, but was previously the Director of Sales and Marketing for Isoko Limited, where he was heavily involved in developing technology for agricultural sector. Castro has a mixed professional experience from agri-technology, accounting to business development and law. So he's a man to talk to. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for him. Oh, please feel free anywhere. And also joining us is Anthony Morrison, is a CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. Anthony is a leading African and global agribusiness shaper and a pillar in Ghana and Africa's agribusiness policy development and advocacy. A Ghanaian and African agro entrepreneur and agribusiness policy advocate whose work has attracted recognition from both Ghana and international organizations. Now, this part of the conversation, I want it to be very interactive. And so wherever you are joining us from, and I know there are many of you on Zoom, and I've seen many joining us from across the world, you can join us, and my production team will alert me if you are ready to have a say or contribution. At every table, because we wanted to make this very participatory, you have a microphone in the middle of the table. You have a knob in front of the microphone, just as we do in conferences. You press the microphone, you press the knob, the lights will lit, and then you can talk into it. And so everybody, wherever you are, you must have a microphone in the middle. And that is how I want you to interact. So just press the knob in front of the microphone, the lights lit, and then make your contribution, ask your questions as we proceed. I want to quickly get into my guests, my panelists who are joining us. I want to start to just interrogate a bit more. If you don't mind, as they say, ladies first, I want to start with you, Alabi, if you don't mind. The experiences that we heard expressed in the survey, how much of that do you identify with in your line of work? Does it resonate with you at a personal, experiential level?
Absolutely. I think that the survey beautifully captures what the reality on the ground is. In addition to my work with the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, I am a rice farmer, and I can totally relate with some of the issues. I think that it was very interesting that we added mentorship, business mentorship. We have business mentorship in other fields, but when it comes to agriculture, people just sort of stumble into it. And so for me, that is very interesting. Yes, and for smallholder farmers, technology has always been an issue. People come and say, we developed this technology, but the farmers are not adopting it. And then farmers are also saying that, we do not have the right technology. So there's a disconnect somewhere, and we need to begin to look at ways in which we can link these two areas together, research on one side and farmers on the other, and bring it together to ensure that agriculture development becomes a reality for Africa.
Castro, is this the same experience for you?
Yes.
Yes, please. It's microphone. Yes, go on.
Yes. I think that, like she said, there's a disconnect. And also for technology, there are a lot of silos. People are building technology, young people are getting development of technology. And because they've seen it work elsewhere, they're also building. But it's just repetitive. And also adoption is also a problem. Literacy, especially in Ghana, if you look at the rate of adoption in Ghana, the number of young people who are using technology in Ghana, 12%, very low. So it's an issue of really the development of these technologies in silos and how you bring that connect to the people who are adopting it. Literacy is a problem with the farmers in terms of adoption. There's a lot of ag-tech going on, but it has not impacted the smallholder farmer. So for us, working with farmers also, market linkages is a huge problem. the recommendation that came from the study. Again, access to land for young people who want to get into agriculture. If you are leasing land down south, the cost of leasing of land down south. If it's in the north, usually sometimes the north they would probably not sell the land to you or give the land out to you at a cost. They might give it to you for free. But then how do you then develop that land? So those are some of the issues that are within the smallholders sector.
Let me hear from Anthony. What's your own personal experiences have been in this area? Okay, speaking to your, let's see that works.
All right. So,
Right.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning. I think that was a very good survey, but I think I was quick to identify one major missing link. To interest you to know, I also chair the Ghana Agriculture Sector Skills Body, and I identified skills. We've run a number of research across board, and what is actually a major challenge to the industry, especially for the youth in Ghana, is skills. Most of the reason why most of the agribusiness and agri-tech companies do not survive is because they lack the needed skills to either be innovative or to be sustainable or to be able to form a very robust management system with regards to their startups or businesses. So I think that we should look at how skills is very essential in developing some of these things. But in all, I think it's good. There was one other thing I was trying to see. We've done some work with FAO, and we were very emphatic on the fact that research and innovation is critical in the industry. We kind of agree that yes, though access to data, access to internet, and many other things that are very critical for the development of agri-tech. And let's be mindful here that agri-tech is not in the city. It's in the villages where innovations are needed to solve major challenges of smallholder farmers, irrigation, and many other things. And yet still, where the technologies are required, there are no data access, there are no internet access, and many other things. And this is where, if you look at how government operates, you would expect that, in Europe, there are a lot of incentives available for youth who have very critical, innovative concepts to solve challenges are supported. For instance, government makes available part of their cyberspace for youth to have access to have research and to be able to be competitive. But in Ghana, either the system doesn't exist at all, and there is always that kind of confusion. You see youth in Accra who says, I'm doing agri-tech, but if you look at the data of farmers in Accra, it probably is even less than 0.1. And the last data shows that we have about 57% of our rural folks in the rural areas engage actively in agriculture, not to say of the value chain. And I like the fact that they zeroed in on technology, because our last census, I'm happy Mofa is here, our last agriculture census 2018 was very emphatic on the fact that over 70% of our farmers still uses rudimentary technology.
You say that there's 70%?
Yes, still uses rudimentary technology.
In ancient Stone Age.
So we're talking about
cutlass and
the
hoe.
7, yes, cutlass and hoe. And even the World Bank report 2020 stated that if African farmers can adopt innovative technology, they'll be able to make $1 trillion by 2030.
$1 trillion?
Yes. So that tells you that we cannot underscore the importance of technology. Thank you.
So this is pretty shocking. But if you put in a context of comparing like to like, so other African countries, right? And the research did that for Ghana, Kenya, in adoption of technology. 12% for Ghana, 39% for Kenya. So that tells a story about, I mean, Kashu, where are we failing? What's the link here? I mean, the other African countries are doing better, at least the survey that we saw from Heifer International shows that other African countries are doing better in the adoption than we are. We are 12%, others are 39%. There must be something that, and I know you travel across the continent also in your work, so what is the challenge between us and the rest of the continent?
I think that if you look at East Africa, a lot of the East African countries are the ones that are doing quite well in adoption. They began quite earlier than we did in terms of technology adoption. And also the issue of literacy. In East Africa, for instance, apart from Swahili, that is common around, English was quick for them in terms of how they adopt it in their educational level. For us also, a lot of the farmers, smallholder farmers you have are illiterate. So the literacy is a challenge. Technology is developed in English, and you want to use technology to provide a service to the farmer. He has to adopt it. Now, if you look at climate change, for instance, and you want to use technology to solve the issue of climate change, and you're sending information to the farmer, if it is not interpreted properly in a local language for the farmer to understand, then adoption becomes a problem. How do you get information in English to say it's 37% humidity, 40% chance of rainfall, or there'll be a certain millimeter of rainfall throughout the week? How do you send that information to the farmer in a local language he can understand? Because that information alone doesn't tell him whether to rain or not. They have their own ways. They look at the wind coming from this side, the sky is blue here. If the sky is blue on the other side of the mountain, then to rain to pass, and to rain this way. Okay, but if you have technology, you can use that.
I mean, you say that, and I see giggles in the audience, but it's strange you say that when our common phones now have AccuWeather.
Yes.
You just tell you if I'm in OEB, it tells me OEB weather.
Yes, but you can read that.
And it makes you wonder, so what's...
Yeah, but you can read that.
Okay.
He doesn't have a smartphone to read that. He uses what you call a YAM phone. Now you have that information. How do you transmit that into a language he can understand? Because the problem is, and like we read this morning in the graphic, last year the rains, they came when we began applying fertilizer for crop formation, then the rain stopped. So yield was low for maize. This year the rainfall pattern has changed. So we planted late. So the rainfall pattern has changed. Now so farmers planted in anticipation of the rain, and then the crops failed.
Because we are still relying, 70% are still relying on rain-fed agriculture.
Exactly.
When a constant supply of water to irrigate would have taken you off this, dependence on the heavens.
But what is the cost of irrigation? Okay, I dug a borehole for 11,000 cedis. I'm getting solar panels installed for a 2-horsepower pump for 35,000 cedis. Okay.
Say that again. Solar panels that feed the water supply.
Yes, that will pump the water from the borehole.
Okay. How much is that?
35,000 cedis. Now, how do you, and again, the land tenure system and the land size. Smallholder farmer, on the average, from the ministry, is that when you're going for a subsidy program, the maximum you can take is for 5 acres for a smallholder farmer. If you're doing more than 5 acres, then of course you deal through the district office and get a larger portion of the subsidy for your farm. So, averagely, we are saying that you can't do more than 5 acres as a smallholder farmer. If you want to do more, you need dispensation from the ministry. So there are lots of factors that affect how these things work at the local level. And for me, the East African countries are doing better in terms of technology adoption because, M-Pesa and Co. for financial inclusion began well in the East African region before it came here. Momo has
in fact, mobile money was first in Kenya, done purposely, mainly for the agri
That's what they call M-Pesa in Kenya,
and then
for instance.
It's sort of exploded, become everybody else's
Exactly.
use.
So the farmer is, now if you want to pay, I was happy when I paid for bread, 5 cedis in Tamale. A woman I saw was illiterate, but she took Momo, which is good for me. I mean, mobile phone penetration now is over 130%, which is good. I mean, if we can begin to get farmers on, and we need to use technology to be able to bridge that divide. If you use technology and farmers are transacting, for instance, on Momo, then you can then watch their transactions, look at their financial history, and based on that, you can then do lending. Because then they're transacting on a platform that you can monitor what their transactions are. And through that, you can then do lending to them. These are technologies that some people have developed that we will probably need to scale up. And scaling up of technology is also a problem. It's a major factor. Piloting R&D is costly when it comes to technology. So young people small silos, they do a small pilot, they're working with some smallholder farmers, certain group, and we can't scale that up to other places. You know.
Ade, let me bring you in, and because you are young, but you are in the agri field, and you talk about growing rice, correct? I'm curious, all the challenges that we've had didn't stop you from still going in there, right? I mean, we saw the research that there is enthusiasm for young people who want to go into agri. And if you make it sexy for them through technology, they will jump at it. But the challenges are lack of finance, land tenure system, no capacity. What worked for you? What convinced you to do it in spite of the challenges? Because I'm curious to know your own personal story.
Okay. Just before I answer your question,
please.
I'd like to make a comment to the previous question that you asked. Why has technology adoption stalled for us? I think that government commitment is a huge success factor when you're doing these things, because as much as we'd like to say that private sector, people need to develop things for themselves, if there are certain, we don't operate in a vacuum. There is an ecosystem. So if the government does not make certain things available, then you bring the technology, but it's not going to work. Another thing is that a lot of people say that farmers are illiterate and they don't understand. Maybe, but for example, in the East African countries, they were able to break down the information. You said M-Pesa, for example. The name is a local name. Can we then, have researchers embedded in the local settings, understand that farmers look at the direction of the wind and the color of the clouds to tell, and then go back to our books and then see how can we interpret this to fit what the farmer already knows. And then you can start to see change. But if you believe that as a researcher, your way is the best, the way that you present information is very, very key to whether it will be accepted or not. So I would like to say that researchers definitely need to get embedded. Now,
I like your M-Pesa analogy. So M-Pesa is local language. We have mobile money in Ghana. Now we've made it into local language to call it Momo. And I mean, people understand.
Well.
But I get the point.
Yeah.
It was mobile money for a long time before if we accepted
Absolutely.
the Momo, sort of corruption of it.
Absolutely.
But if you're starting with something else like in an account, maybe and localize it for farmers, because we know that maybe would have caught on a bit faster and they can use it. I get your point.
Absolutely. Now, to my personal story in agriculture, let me share how I got into it. I did agriculture for my first degree. I majored in agribusiness, and then I have a master's in agribusiness. But even with this 6 years of education in agriculture, I could not venture into the system because, one, I just didn't know where to start.
Even with your degrees in it?
Yes. I didn't know where to start. I am from Elmina, right? My farm is located in the northeast region of Ghana. How was I going to access land? So when you say mentorship, working with the farmers in my organization, a Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, having the farmers hold my hand, literally tell me, I sat down to discuss with my president, Mr. Abdurrahman Mohammed, and he sort of showed me the ropes. Now, another thing with the access to land was, as a young person, imagine me as a young woman going to a community to meet a chief to discuss access to land. Do you know how difficult that will be? So one of the things that peasant farmers did was to acquire a block area of land and say, okay, young people, if you're interested, we had an arrangement to have young people venture into agriculture, and that was my breakthrough into agriculture. I would say I already mentioned lack of access to and control of productive resources. And then again, technology, like you said, it got to a point I finished producing, right? And then I needed the combine harvester. A combine harvester is expensive for any farmer so we need government and private investors to come into this system. Because of I couldn't access combine harvester, I lost about 40% of my produce.
40%?
Yes.
And that's 40% of your investment also wiped out?
Exactly. And this is me being quite conservative, I would say. And if I didn't understand, if I wasn't working in the sector, like I have friends who have, ventured and then they had such issues and then they're like, no, never again. So it is having access to these things, mentorship, like you said, financing was a problem. Finance was a problem. Lucky for me, I had personal savings, and then I had to look to a family member to invest. And that is how I got into it. But imagine in a system where banks are totally reliant on collateral. How does a young person who has no collateral begin to even discuss financing with a bank? So these are some of the issues that prevent young people from getting into agriculture. And so I was very happy when the issue of mentorship, because that was really my breakthrough to say, okay, well, I can do this because someone is holding my hand, someone is leading me into it. And I would like to commend the government. The government has developed a large area of land in Bolsa South, that's in Fumbisi, for rice production. But how many young farmers know about it?
Okay. From what you know, young farmers like you don't know about it.
No,
right?
not many of them.
Well, what are the terms of it? You can access it, and they provide the technology for you that it's already there to access and improve yields?
I wouldn't be able to tell exactly, but then I know that you have to go through the district agri office and put in an application and things. I think for now, that place is almost already full. So okay. if we develop such areas of land and then tell the youth that, okay, you can access this and you can do that, that's a great way to start. I'd also like to say that last year, I tried to access drone technology to do broadcasting of the rice seeds. It wasn't feasible.
Why?
One, the company said they needed to do at least 100 acres.
That's a drone company?
Yes.
Okay.
They needed to have at least 100 acres of land before they were able to come in. And then at the time, they were charging about, I think, between 25 and 30 cedis per acre, which was still quite expensive. And I understood them because even accessibility to the farm was an issue. The roads are terrible. So they have to bring all the equipment. They need to come with generators and everything to be able to ensure that all these things work. So not having rural facilities also, would aid in technology adoption in agriculture, in my opinion.
Fascinating example. I mean, drone is a technology now that it's pretty common in farming. But so what you're saying is that this almost takes out smallholder farmers from enjoying the benefits of technology, for example, because you're so small. The drone company says it's not worth our while to do, how many acres did you?
I do 10.
Only 10, yes, because, and you're charging you 30
cedis.
So that's what, times 10. Too small for them to invest all of that to come.
Absolutely.
That is a big deal. I want to open this up for our audiences and guests in here. If you have a comment on anything that's been said so far, the research, just press the button and introduce yourself and just have a go. But any of you want to comment on that challenge with how do you, because even for the large holder farmers, they're struggling, the adoption is small. And then you have smallholder farmers. And we know majority of our farmers are smallholder farmers, peasant farmers, yes. Right? Subsistence, etc. The problem significantly escalates for them. It is a multiplier effect for them. If the big holder farmers are struggling, you can imagine what is happening to our majority smallholder farmers. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yes. To a large extent, there have been a number of innovative projects from MOFA. But I think that as a country, we do not have the interest of others at heart. Now, I say that because we fail or we become greedy to share information. What is needed, for instance, if I'm bringing a tractor to my place or you're bringing a drone, you need to make sure that the people around you, you inform them. When you do that, it actually reduces your cost. But in my years of active involvement in the industry, you realize that even the person you call your partner will hide information from you. That information which is critical to harness the collective work you people are doing. And it is the lack of information sharing that is becoming a major challenge for even the youth in what they do now, their development. And the technology issue, we are quickly adopting technology rather than trying to domesticate technology. The cost of technology adoption is so high. We buy a lot of agriculture machinery from outside without taking the time to understand the technology. After a year or less of operating, the technology fails to work, and your money is gone. You've got to go back to the drawing board to look for money again, either to buy a new technology or to go and lease or otherwise. So we need to find a way throughout this. Then again, the system must have a regulatory approach. I think that the way we adopt and bring in technology into the country must have some regulatory system. In that, at the end of the day, if you look at the amount of money we spent on the purchase of technology, whether soft or hard technology, is so much that if we continue to go on that trend, we will continue to adopt technology without any serious evaluation of the output of that technology. Now, smallholder farmers needs to start looking at a block farming system. Because in her case, if it was a block farming, it would have been much easier for the drone to come in and do 100 acres and go. But the smallholder farmers have 5 acres here, and you have to move about 10 miles to get to the next smallholder farmer. You need to move another something miles. Meanwhile, the roads are so bad. Sometimes if you go to some of the areas, it will take you hours to even move your 4x4 or very good pickup to that side. Meanwhile, what they are paying you is so small. So we need to look at it very well. And the other thing about the smallholder farmers is there are group, but they are not really group. They call themselves, we refer to their farmer-based organizations. In India, they are called the producer organizations. But they are yet to understand fully what it means by farmer-based organization, or as a group, what they need to do to be able to access some of these things. And it comes to capacity building, which you earlier alluded to. So we'll need to find a way through all these systems and make sure that we streamline from the regulatory, the capacity building, and the access to land, because the issue of land is because we do not have agricultural land banks. So if we have agricultural land banks, then the block farming, youth access to land for agricultural purposes and others can be resolved.
Interesting. I know the Agri-tech Ministry has a lot of interventions to address this, and we'll hear from them shortly. But let me hear from all of you. I see a hand there. Yes, please introduce yourself and let's go. Wherever you are, or either on many social media platforms and also in the auditorium here, you can interact with us with your questions or comments. Yes, please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hamon Mensah. I work with Solidaridad West Africa. 2 things broadly. I mean, based on the submissions that have been made by the speakers, I think that broadly there are 2 things that we should look at where if we have to improve adoption of technology. The first one is cost, and then the second one is the capacity of those who receive the technology to convert them into action, especially in the area of information services. From the cost angle, for example, in Africa, Kenya is a very good example that all of us cite. And I believe that there's a very strong correlation between the fiscal policy in Kenya and technology adoption. So for example, in Ghana, where we tax virtually everything, it becomes too expensive to adopt technology. And so if we are deliberate about deploying solar technology, for example, what is the government's fiscal policy with respect to solar technology? Are farmers getting a tax rebate or something of the sort? Recently, we heard that the MPs are getting tax rebate on V8s. Can we do a similar thing for farmers when it comes to some of the technologies that they deploy. Still on the cost side, I think that pricing models also have to be looked at. So for example, the speaker who mentioned the deployment of solar technology intimated that the borehole alone is 11,000, the solar system is 35,000, that's like 46,000. There are other costs that must come into play. Eventually, he'll be ending up between 50 and 60,000 in deploying something that he would need for just maybe 2 hectares of land. Can we look at pricing models, for example, to pay as you go? So it becomes irrigation as a service, so you don't have to pay upfront. Right. So basically, the person who owns the irrigation system comes to do the irrigation and charges you for maybe the quantity or the liters of water that is deployed on your farm and so on. So you don't have to put up the entire amount in terms of deploying the technology. The other thing is financing structures. New things are coming up, technology is evolving, and financing must evolve or must adapt to be able to finance some of these things. Very often what we have seen is that financing stays where it is. A banker once told me that what they don't know, they don't do. How can we begin to engage commercial banks, fund managers, so they can begin to adapt their financing structures to meet evolving technology? I believe if all of these things are done, it will help in improving the adoption of technology. The final thing is, if the farmer gets, let's say, a piece of information on weather or the type of soil and so on. And I'll use a typical example. Currently, there are handheld soil scanners that farmers can use to assess the nutrients in the soil and so on. So let's say after I have done that, am I now able to go somewhere where I can get fertilizer formulated in proportions that are able to improve my soil? I mean, formulators in Ghana or globally would formulate fertilizers using average, and so is NPK something, 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 and it has to be used for onion and groundnut and whatever. So you have a situation where even though I have used a soil scanner and I know exactly what I need to improve the quality of my soil, I'm unable to move on that because what I have in the system by way of fertilizer is not appropriate or cannot address the problem that I have. So I believe that some of these technologies or some of these innovations have to be looked at if we have to improve upon the adoption of technology.
Thank you very much. I see another, a couple of hands here. Yes?
Thank you very much. So my name is Majid Mohammed from the Canadian High Commission.
Good.
I work with Global Affairs Canada. I want to start by first thanking Heifer for the research. I think the findings are timely because right now, Canada is supporting the Ministry of Food and Agriculture through our MARC program to develop an e-agriculture policy, which will come with a strategy and implementation plan. So some of these findings hopefully will get factored into the national policy. But I want to ask, the low usage of technology among the youth, particularly 12% for Ghana. It will be interesting to drill down whether there is some gender disparity in this also.
Okay, whether more men
or more women, so that policies can be targeted specifically to these things.
Heifer, do you want to attempt is there a disaggregation of that data? Is there the gender question in the data maybe could assist us appreciate it a bit more? I'd like to take your Kasha, you want to yes, go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
I think it works.
Okay. Just a quick comment on what Hammond Mensah, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the issue of financing, I think that we need to de-risk the sector. That's one of the major issues.
The sector is too risky.
So the person who is financing, he says the bank says I don't finance what I don't know. Okay. Where the issue of agri-insurance, we don't have a weather indexing. So once there's no weather indexing, the insurance company doesn't want to do, because basically it's rain-fed agriculture. You take the poultry sector, for instance. They're having problems with feed now. So they're actually starving the chickens. So what will happen is that once he's starving the chickens, he can't get the right weight, he can't get the right revenue, he can't pay back his loan. So the financing, the person who's financing doesn't want to finance it. One other thing I think we've also done in terms of the policy is also to focus more on production than we are doing a supply side agri-production and not demand-driven. So we're not doing, we're looking at the market and producing to feed the market. We are focusing on producing and then looking for the market. And that's a problem. So we take NAFCO, NAFCO is supposed to buy surpluses. But NAFCO is giving out contracts to people to go to the market to go and purchase. What happens is that then once you're competing with people on the market to purchase produce, you're driving the price up. And NAFCO is state-owned, they have money. So if you're looking at NAFCO as from what I thought it would be, you look at NAFCO, it buys the surplus, it keeps the surplus. Now, if the prices are going too high, like now the poultry industry can't buy maize because the bag is about 160 cedis, you begin to push some of the maize that you have with the surplus you have bought into the market to drive the price down. And it works for the market. Because you might have bought the surplus at, let's say, 68 cedis when it was not in glut. It was in glut. And then you store properly, you wait. When the prices are going up, you feed the market, you drive the price down. But now NAFCO is in the market buying the produce themselves. So they drive out the thing.
It's interesting because I know already so there have been the commodity exchange.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is supposed to like be the market, solving the market problem.
Yeah, but the commodity exchange, you need to be part of the commodity exchange. You need to go register, and then they have warehouses, you go and put the thing, and then that also is a warehouse inventory system. So you can take the receipt from the commodity exchange and actually go to a finance house to go and borrow to go and continue operations. Okay, so it's in this fledgling stage, so it's now growing. We hope that eventually it will get to a stage where, it will be full-fledged and we can make the maximum benefit. The last thing I want to talk about is the problem she was facing, and my good friend, Farmer Morrison, also referred to it. The thing about agricultural pooling. So I use drone technology at my end as well. But what I needed to do was also to get other smallholder farmers who are around. And then I pulled them together. So once the drone came, it worked for me and worked for the others as well. The thing also is that I was looking for a planter in the Volta region. And there was only one private person who had one. The Adidome Farm Institute also had one, but they were using it for training. Tractor had to bring me a planter from Ejura.
All the way?
Yes, I paid 6,000 cedis for transportation.
Yeah,
wow. So if we can create agricultural pools, so Volta region has an agricultural pool, tractors, 20, 30 tractors, we can do a public-private partnership. I'm not a fan of government handling such institutions. So a private person, 30 tractors, you can use technology to tractor to let people request for some of these facilities. There are planters. Look, the smallholder 2-acre farms, they're using planters if you make it available. Because when they come and plant for me, they're just there next door. Because they will charge you the same rate as you probably use human hand to do. So what you do is that if you can get a large pool, they are prepared to come and work. So once you have 2 acres here, 2 acres here, 3 acres here, 4 acres here, they will come.
Yeah.
But if we can get these pools working, because look, I work with Action Aid in the Volta region, and there was a problem. There are 3,000 women farmers who couldn't get access to tractor services because they have to wait for the field of men to be plowed before they get their services, and they plant late because of that.
Okay.
Some of these things we can
very
solve through
interesting. And I noticed in the report that Heifer put out that one of the recommendations is definitely institutional support to farmers, smallholder farmers in particular. I want to hear more of your comments and contributions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can you pull the yes?
Is that better? Is it okay now?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. My name is Mauli Asige, and I work for the University of Missouri Assistance Program, Ghana. Hello?
Please go on. Please go on.
Thank you. I probably want to associate myself with the commendation and appreciation of Heifer's data analysis and the insight they have shared. And I could probably say a lot of things, but I just want to make it brief. First of all, I want to point out the fact that, and probably others may be aware, of course, or almost everybody may be aware, the fact that I think farming or agriculture is not profitable enough in Ghana, and that is the bottom line. And as we try to do the analysis and to do the comparisons, also try to see the level of adoption among youth in the different countries, we probably need to see the level of agriculture among the different countries to see whether that is the driving force for the different levels of adoption. Because I think when people don't find money in the activity, they are generally not attracted. And from my experience, both in Ghana as a farmer and as a development worker, I think that is the conclusion I've come to from diversity of experiences. Appropriate technology, and especially e-technology, thank you, is definitely important, especially e-tech for attracting the youth, given the smartphone and the different apps, the social networks and all that exist. But the rewards are definitely important. The scale of operations is very important. In fact, for smallholder farmers, there's a very wide description of what is the small-scale farmer, depending on the crop and all that. Even for startups who are trying to venture into commercial farming, the scale of operation is also important. And all that have implications for profitability and sustainability. There's a whole lot of mindset change that is required. I think somebody talked about the issue of farmers being organized and all that, and the issue of farmer-based organizations, which personally I've been trying to talk about farmer business organizations to kind of help in the reorientation from the fact that you may be a group, but you may just be a training group, but you need to change into a business-oriented group that is trying to identify and acquire services for yourselves and all that. At one of the projects that we are running, which is funded as part of the Modernizing Agriculture program that Majid spoke about, the third mark program, one of the things we are working on is a model on farmer-based organization training, which is being deployed through the Department of Agri and the ministry's work to help in doing part of this reorientation. And I think that is one of the kind of solutions that may help in that direction. But I think I would want to pause here because of time. Thank you very much.
And I want to hear more from the audience. I'm curious. I mean, yes, please. Do we have farmers in our midst? I know the peasant farmers are represented. Yes, at the back there. I want to hear from you. I mean, the research talks a lot about lack of finance as some of the barriers to technological adoption. Lack of finance, the land tenure system, capacity building. I want you to hear your experiences, but also most importantly, the recommendations that they've made. What for you will be the recommendations, say, policy interventions that could help address the challenges you face in adopting policy? Yes, madam. Yes.
Okay. My name is Faustina. I work at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, but I also work with a network of young African researchers in agriculture based in Cape Town. And I was a bit fascinated about the statistics on land, because...
The statistics on land. Can we get her a better microphone that's more stable, please, so we can hear what she's saying? Yes. There's one behind you. Great.
Okay, so the land question, what we in research call it, at least in the agrarian discourse, we call it the land question, is something that we have been working on within the network of African researchers for the past 7 years across the entire African continent. And when we talk about land access, we also see a lot of specificities that if you are not really paying attention to such specificities, you're likely to recommend a lot of access or ownership issues. we realized that in terms of the Southern and Eastern African region, their experience with colonialism was totally different. They had settler colonialism where land was taken away from them. So in post-colonialism or post-independence Eastern and Southern Africa, land issues are different from what we have in Western Africa. And so when they talk access, they are not talking about access in terms of we talking access in terms of ownership. When you come to the Western African sub-region and you ask somebody about land access, they are thinking in terms of land that they can have and own. But if you talk typically about youth in Eastern and Southern Africa, they are talking about land that first they can access and use and possibly in future own. And also in the Western African sub-region, we also see a certain dominance of tree crop production, that's perennial production. And perennial production comes with that, having that long-term access to land, compared to Eastern Africa, where many of the agripreneurs are into cereals and annual crops. And so I was a bit fascinated about to what extent is this just a perception, and how does this perception of me accessing land and owning land even serves as a barrier for people to even, youth in the Western African sub-region, to even venture into agriculture in the first place? And to what extent do we know the kinds of access rights in terms of use, value, or ownership that exist within the Western African sub-region, and how these differences then encourage youth to go into agriculture through various ways of accessing land for different categories of crops?
Thank you very much. There were hands there, yes, the gentleman in yellow.
My name is Francis Money. I'm from the issue we're talking about, I think one of the challenges here is agriculture is not attractive. From the youth perspective, I see that agriculture is not attractive. Why? Because it's not profitable. The farmer produces the crops, and at the end, the actors come in and buy it at a very low price. So it makes, the farmer is not making profit. The son or the daughter is seeing this thing and sees that the father is not making profit from the venture he's in. And so it doesn't look attractive to that young one to come in. And that's one of the challenges I see is there. So if there's something we can do about pricing for the farmers, then we can find a way of resolving the issue of agriculture being attractive and getting the youth to go into it. It's one of the challenges. Then the issue about land accessibility. If you take a place like Eastern Region, Greater Accra, a young guy wants to go in for land to do some agriculture, and you have the issues of land gas coming in, interfering, and some chiefs also fighting. For instance, my company went to Eastern Region to secure 400 acres of land to do pineapple production. And here we've secured the land from the chiefs, and one young chief, sub-chief, comes in and says the land belongs to him, who submit to these big chiefs. And he keeps fighting us with land gas, beating some of my workers. And so you send people to the farm, and they are scared and want to run out. They don't want to do their job again. These are some of the challenges we are facing in the area of land accessibility.
Interesting. Is that all?
I want to add something in the area of education.
Okay.
The smallholder farmer we are working on, we work with a lot of smallholder farmers. I have access to more than 500 plus smallholder farmers that I'm working with. And they are not educated, yes, but you go on the ground, and when they see new people coming in to impart to them new knowledge, some of them take it. For instance, this year, we saw that the rainfall delayed a bit. But we, Grow For Me, we are using a technology where we are able to use forecast, 14 days forecast. And so with that, I was able to use our technology to analyze when there will be possible rainfall. We advise the farmers in the Seche Dumasi area to plant between 20th of March to 15th of April. Most of the farmers who planted within that period, If you check our system, now they've received more than 433 millimeters of rainfall, enough for maize growth. And so,
and I want to ask you something based on the research. The research talks about literacy for the farmers and training them. So you have this technological intervention to fix the rain prediction challenge. To what extent are the farmers that you're training and educating on the use and adoption of this receptive of the literacy you're giving them in this area? Are they receptive of it? Do you see them, after you've trained them, do you see them actually implementing and applying what you've taught them?
Initially, it was difficult. Why? The farmer uses the old primitive method where they read the weather by themselves. They'll look at the wind direction like they were saying. And so when we told them that from our technology, you can plant within this period, some of them were, nah, we can't accept this, because they were scared. But immediately, some of them did, and within the week, they saw rainfall. The rest started coming up, and they started implementing.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's difficult at the early stage, but you just have to continue pressing it, and they will take it.
Very good intervention. I see a hand here, but there was one at the back, right? If you can stay, I'll come to you, sir. If you can stay at the back, because I see a few hands. I'll come back to you. Don't worry, I'll come back. I'll come back to you, because please make a note for me. Okay, don't worry, forgive me. I want to get a few more. Please make notes for me so that when we come, you can hit them for me. Yes? Let's say yes, please.
Hello. Hi, my name is Paul Asiedu. I'm with Tech Shelter.
Oh, there are more hands here, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry. So I'll come. So I see more hands here. I'll come to you, and I'll come to yes. Please go on.
So I said my name is Paul Asiedu. I'm with Tech Shelter. Our focus is on using greenhouses. Greenhouses are clearly technological solutions to some of the problems we have in agriculture. But some problem I've seen, even in that sector, aside knowledge and other things, is a specific market with a specific volume that everybody can tap into. Because people have their own target markets in small and bits and pieces. So people grow the crop, and they meet their target after a particular season. Before the next growing season, or through the cycle, they are not able to meet the target. They start borrowing from A, B, and C to meet that target. I think that if we can solve the problem of a central pool market, where we know that our total collective effort would be targeted at producing 20 tons to meet X demand with a fixed price, I can then go and look for loans and build more greenhouses, knowing that where to sell it is not a problem. How much I'll sell it for will not be a problem. That will help us finance all these interventions we're talking about. To adopt technology to do more, you need to be sure that the market you are looking for is not so volatile and swinging everywhere along the year. So I think that getting a specific market and negotiating for good pricing is important for farmers within our sector and other sectors.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, something else I observe is with the equipment, when you're talking about equipment, if we would have a way to get some of our partners in other countries, in Ghana we have people importing used cars, use this, use that. I have not seen a group deciding to import used agri equipment. I'm not saying buy brand new ones, they could be very expensive. Can we get our people to start looking at used agri equipment that can come in at low cost for farmers to begin to share and use this equipment?
Very interesting suggestion. And I guess my climate change colleagues and friends who say, but not, when it's old, it might have an impact on the climate, and then eventually it will have an impact on the farming. And so there's a whole cycle that then also begins to evolve.
I understand that. But I think if we encourage our own people like Kantanka and the rest to begin to produce replacement parts. Replacement parts for those.
If you don't mind, because of sake of time, I see that people on Zoom too that I want to
okay, but my final take is the consistency of supply of inputs. You get excited about a particular variety of crop, and you are zooming into it to produce more. All of a sudden, it's no longer available. You get excited about a particular activity, you need an input for a particular production, fertilizers, seeds, even fruit set hormones. And just when you need it the most, it is nowhere, nobody has it, and the farmer is stuck with his crop and has to adapt to different other cultural practices to try and survive. So if we have a way to get government support to either have these locally produced breeds to meet those international standards, so that we have them locally available, we will not struggle to look for seeds. During the lockdown, it was difficult to bring some stuff.
Okay.
So difficult. So thank you.
Great input. I want to come back to my panel, but I want to take a quick question or comment from Zoom, because I know our Zoom friends, some of you have some interventions. I will project the Zoom link onto the screen here so we can see and hear the questions. Okay, this is one that was sent in. It's from Daniel Owusu Krante. He says about technology, innovation, commercialization, or adoption. From academia point of view, most young innovators design technologies without having deep customer insights. As a lecturer, I have been assisting student innovators commercialize their innovation. And the problem I encounter with them is developing without having target beneficiaries in mind. I am now supporting young innovators go through design thinking and innovating training to solve this problem. Thank you. That's a very good intervention indeed. Do we have more that I would like to share? Okay. Well, when there's more, let me so that I can call on it. I want to. There are comments and questions in front. Okay, great. So I'll come to you now for brief 2 minutes each reaction to whatever I've heard, and I'll come back to the two of you here, forgive me, hold on for me, and then the three of you here, and then we'll probably begin to wrap up. Let me hear, yes, your quick 2 minutes intervention to.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me make an emphatic statement here. We should stop the free in Ghana's agriculture. Free. I mean, you want to start a business, and you want government to come in free here, free there, free. No. You see, this is the reason why the industry is not growing. Over-dependency on the agriculture, on government. This is one major reason the industry is not growing. Free, it doesn't work. If you want to be a car importer, do you go to government to provide some free thing? You look for your money. Now, let me also add that it's not everyone that can be a farmer. Let's get it clear. It's not everybody that can be a farmer. And it doesn't have to be like that. What we are working on, we have over almost 8 million, according to the last population and agriculture census. The next one is coming. And we are projecting that about 12 million or 40 million of the population are actively engaged in agriculture. Now, this is the risk effect. You have that number of population in agriculture, but lack the essential skills to increase their productivity, yields, to produce food to feed the country.
Why?
That number, because their skills are very low. So what we should be doing, and you see, the point is that we have so many farmers in the industry, and government is not able to bring in any agricultural social intervention policies that can affect all of them. One good example is the Planting for Food and Jobs, which is only catering for maybe 3 million people out of over 40 million people. What we need to do as a country is to introduce an economic skills diversification, make farmers to be able to acquire newer skills in other industries so that they move out. Then the rest that are left can be supported heavily to produce food for all of us to eat. If you go to US, they have less than 1.2% who are farmers. And they produce food for over 400 million plus people, plus Ghana and other African countries. What we need to do is to make sure that we have fewer people, support them heavily to produce food continuously. You see, the issue about finance is that in other countries like Brazil, Argentina, and the likes that we refer to all the time, they have special purpose vehicle companies that come in. For instance, they have about 1,000 farmer-based organizations in a localized area or smallholder farmers. The special purpose vehicle company comes in and absorbs all their debts and everything onto their books. So in terms of deploying technology, mechanization, seeds, and what have you, the company takes it and deliver it on behalf of the credit. So let's say if my company is going for credit from a bank, I go for it on behalf of these people, but not on the books of the smaller holder farmers or the farmer-based organization who do not have the capacities or even the collateral.
So there's an intermediary.
Exactly.
So that the smallholder farmer is not directly going to the bank.
No.
Where you are guaranteed he will be rejected.
Exactly.
Okay. There's a guy with a muzzle in the middle who goes and takes the finance and then goes to.
Yes.
Okay.
And the issue that was raised, you see, over the years, we have developed production policies. And Castro made point to the fact that we need to start looking at an agriculture market-oriented policy. This has been integrated partially in some of our policies, but it does not actually stand out. We now need to look at, okay, market intelligence, because that is what gives you what you should produce, what varieties you produce, and whether you are producing for the factory, or you are producing for human consumption, or you are producing for livestock. We need to develop a well-structured and strategic policy, which is market-driven and not all productivity and food security. Let me also add that the cost of maintenance in the agriculture sector, in terms of technology and engineering, is a prohibitive structure towards adopting technology. I'll give you one example.
And very briefly, in 30 seconds.
We did a work with GIZ, and in the 3 northern regions, we counted about 140 tractors that were lying idle. The oldest one was about 4 years. The youngest among them were about 3 years. As a result of maintenance, oil change, spare parts, and the likes. The major reason why they were lying is that when they bring people from Kumasi who are from either the mining sector or the construction sector, they charge them more money. Now, when they come, they remove some parts and say, oh, we are going to buy. But when they go, they don't buy, they don't come back, and they waste their money. Sometimes it costs about 5,000, 10,000 to bring somebody from Kumasi to Tamale or Yendi or
come and repair.
To repair.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you are not guaranteed of repair.
Okay. We're going to be wrapping up in the next 5 minutes here in auditorium. And so I'll take the comments on this, my right, and then my left, and then we'll wrap up from the panel. But as you know, we've been live on the JoyNews channel on the Multi TV. We've been live on YouTube. We've been live on Facebook. And of course, many of you have joined us, as you've seen on the screens, on Zoom. And so for our friends who are joining us around the globe via the JoyNews channel and our many social media platforms, particularly on the JoyNews channel, we thank you very much for joining us and watching us live on the live streams, especially on YouTube and on Facebook. And of course, tuning in using your Digibox on JoyNews to watch us live since morning. We are grateful that you managed to join us, and thank you very much for doing so. You can get a copy of the report, which will be launched very, very shortly once we launch. I want to take views quickly from this side. Yes, and I have a microphone there. Yes, I wanted to make it very brief in a minute so that we can have everybody else chip in before we wrap up.
Thank
yes,
you,
sir.
Evans, thank you. My name is Abdurrahman. I work with the Netherlands Embassy here in Accra. My comment is very brief, actually, and I think the conversation we are having here, it all boils down to policy and enabling environment. Nothing more, nothing less. All the issues that have been raised by the experts on the high table, it boils down to policy, research and development. Even this research that has been done by Heifer, how many of our policy makers are present here? How is policy and research meeting? So it's all about policy, and I think that is my very basic take on this subject.
Fantastic, and just to indicate, we had a very few directors from the Agri Ministry who were present, and so they sat and listened. In fact, we had a commitment from the head of policy, planning and evaluation that that's something that they want to take. Unfortunately, because you've spoken already, I want to hear from the lady. Okay, let me exercise my powers for affirmative purposes. Yes, please go on. I can hear you, but can we get him a microphone, because that microphone hasn't been stable. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandra Boatma Kushito. I'm coming from the University of Ghana. And I'm just curious to ask from the MOFA what their plans are, to provide extension services to youth or farmers who are in agriculture. You go to that and they tell you that there's no fuel for the motors that MAG has provided. So post-MAG, what are their plans for providing sustained extension services? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a Minister of Agri rep who would like to intervene on that question? We do? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Please, can I please get a MOFA rep a microphone for me to answer that question, and any other interventions you would like to make?
Okay. Thank you very much.
May we know your name, please, and your designation from the ministry?
Yes, my name is Paul Siame. I'm the Director of Agri-Extension Services.
Oh, fantastic. So here we go.
For the past 4 years, or more than 4 years, through support from the Canadian government, we've been operating the modernizing in agriculture in Ghana. And regularly we provide fuel and logistics to agricultural extension agents. I'm wondering which district where that situation is. If the question is, after MAG, what will happen? The various district agri offices are under the local government service. That's the district assemblies. And I'm sure plans are in place to provide the appropriate logistics when MAG lapses or when MAG is no more. But currently, the motorbikes are there. They have uniforms. They have the vehicles for supervising the last end extension agents in the field. So this is what we can say for now. The logistics may not be enough, but there's a modest supply of logistics on monthly basis to support field extension services. I would like to know the location, which district that is experiencing that. But that's what I have to say for now.
Okay, great. Kasho, you have a question for? Yeah, please go on.
I just wanted to find out, sir, what's your current strength in terms of extension officers, and what's the ratio from extension officer to farmer?
Yes.
Averagely, how many farmers does one extension officer serve?
Yes. The situation as we speak now is one extension agent attends to 706 farmers. The standard number should have been 500. The number should have been 500. But we are complementing this shortage in numbers with use of ICT-enabled opportunities to get. For example, radio is a major one we are using as a ministry in collaboration with the private sector to get agricultural technical knowledge to most of our farmers. So the numbers are not as we want, but compared with some 5 years ago, where it used to be one agent attending to 2,000 farmers, the situation now, following the recruitment of 2,700 extension agents in 2018, the number is what I'm telling you now. We have one attending to 706 farmers. But there are plans, the ministry is seeking cabinet approval for further engagement of extension agents to improve the current situation.
That's great improvement. And yes, I will take the last two here, and then I will wrap up with my panelists. Yes, please.
Thank you, Evans.
Can you please make it brief for me? I'll be very grateful.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Yes, because time is fast spent. My name is Bob Hodgson. I'm with Tech Shelter. We provide greenhouse support services for farmers in Ghana. Okay, so I'm a typical example of the topic here today. And because agriculture is so big and the issues are so big, sometimes we deviate and divert. So you will notice that we're trying to speak about the youth, but we'll then end up talking about agriculture in general and the problems we are facing. Because ordinarily, the youth who is coming into it too will face the same challenges or whatsoever. But in the building blocks of solving the thing step by step, the youth today, like myself, like TTL, like Quidex, like Paul, we are doing exactly what we are trying to do from the research. We are building applications, whether we are doing it by SMS or we are doing it by apps or whatever. We are providing services today. But the real insight is we want media, lead the conversation. Get us who are doing it, who are suffering, and who are succeeding to tell the story today, just like Farmer Morrison and my brother and this lady here is saying. Currently, we are being invited by University of Ghana to come back. We did our thesis and researches in the College of Agriculture. It's still lying there. We are supposed to come back and help them do design thinking into helping students today to create businesses in agribusiness, going through the entire value chain, looking for the gaps and set up businesses. Toyota Tractor is business is because of the lack of finding tractors in some places in Ghana. So he is solving that challenge. I'm solving a challenge in greenhouse farming, providing support service for them. We went to study in Kenya and Israel, and we are back and we are solving it. But we are facing other challenges. There are youth in Ghana doing it. There are very few of us who are succeeding. Majority of us are failing. But because it's a whole topic.
I mean, I'm sure everything. I mean, a lot of it has come up.
Has come up today. I went to Silicon Valley and I noticed that the academia works directly with the startups. Google, people are developing not because they are so brainy. There's a professor sitting somewhere, has years of research, picks a bright student and goes like, we're going to share 40, 50, 60, 70. Go and develop this. When there's a problem, come out, troubleshoot it with my research assistants. We'll give you solutions. It's a complete build-up. I went to Google Farms. Google has a farm, you know that. And I saw it. I was using our applications to test whether they have disease on their crops. I have it live. You get it? We should go back to university. 4 years in agriculture, I didn't know what a tomato plant was. Let's break it. By second year, I shouldn't be in the classroom. I should be interning for the lady.
Absolutely.
For a whole year. I should come back with field knowledge. And the next year, I should be working in a bank or in an industry where I'm learning the soft skills. So I'm going to combine my field knowledge, my classroom knowledge with business. So I know how to wake up early, keep my books before I finish school. I don't have to wait and finish school before I come and do these things. You get it? I went into mining and I'm back in agribusiness. Now the skills I've learned in mining and supply chain, I've brought it back. That's why Paul and I, we are doing the greenhouse farming. You get it? So it should be intentional. Skills, he mentioned, is skills. And when we solve that little bit of skills, then the other thing is what the man said, regulation and policy. We can talk, but if we don't have regulation, we don't have policy makers intentionally. I know people who are extension officers and their bikes are parked, saying, you know that too. Their bikes are parked. I know a lady I was with one yesterday, she's never used a bike because her mother says that don't drive a bike. Yeah. So the bike is parked. But somebody needs to go and meet a farmer and talk to, but the person can't go. And the person is going by Trotsky, and by 3 o'clock, he's going to pick a child. So the issues are big and rife at the big level. When the youth, we are also coming in, we are facing it. But you see, disruptors don't wait for the challenges to be solved. So the few of us, Toyota Tractor, myself, Quidex, we are entering and disrupting the middleman conversation, and we are plugging them, we are adding a few monies there, then we go to the supply chain side, we plug it, and we solve a few monies there. Grow for me, we say, okay, the blockchain farming we can't do, I grow for me, I'm going to get a big land, do block farming, come and invest, I'll give you money, all that. So we are doing it in silos. Let's be intentional about it in a national discourse.
Yeah.
Lead the conversation.
Fantastic point. And especially in being intentional also, not just targeting all groups of farmers, youth. Yeah. Because there's a conversation we're having today, youth. Because the older farmers, they are growing, they are dying, they are fading out. How do you make it sexy enough for the young man to feel attracted to agriculture and use technology to enhance yields? Yes, please, last comment.
Hi, Evans, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Ohinewa Brown. I represent ActionAid Ghana. So I am quite excited about the research and all the things that we've raised today. Because for us, we have been, as Castro has mentioned earlier, we have been working hand in hand with all the stakeholders, basically to ensure that we support our smallholder farmers. Regarding unemployment, I think the key issue that has been raised in the research is unemployment. How do we make the farming how do we create incentives, basically to get our youth to participate in farming? I think one of the issues that we need to look at as stakeholders is basically to ensure that we create an enabling environment for our youth to participate in farming. Now, how do we do it? If we need the youth to be part and utilize technology, one of the things we need to do is to also look at the cost which has been raised.
And that was Heifer International Ghana's breakfast meeting and launch of the Youth Smallholder Farmers in Agri-Tech Africa report under the theme, The Future of Africa's Agriculture, the Role of Youth and Agri-Tech in Ghana. We brought that to you live from the Elisa Hotel in Accra. Time now for News Desk I am Daniel Dazi. Let's take our headlines this hour.